is your advertising and marketing expense thought about as an expense or an investment? Because if it's an expense line item, then you're just kind of stagnant and you're kind of always looking to cut it. But if it's an investment and you're always looking for the ROI and you're shifting dollars in real time based on where the ROI is.
It's everyone's dream to grow, to be a bigger dealer, to be a better dealer, or even get your first dealership.
Car buying is about the people.
Everybody wants to know what's the car business like, and they like to see under the hood.
Welcome to the Walk Around Podcast.
I am one of your hosts, Mark Spoto, joined by my co-host, Heather Wilkinson.
So glad to be here and so glad to talk about our conversation today with John Fitzpatrick. I mean, such great energy.
Yes, John Fitzpatrick, President and CEO of Force Marketing. His team works with over 1,400 dealerships in the business, everything from technology to marketing to customer engagement. And not only that, he taught us a new framework, Heather, the 4 A's.
The 4 A's. But do we want to give them all?
No, let's not.
Yes.
Clearly, we have more to learn.
Yeah.
Let's listen to our own podcast and take a walk around with John Fitzpatrick. Hello and welcome to you, John Fitzpatrick. We really appreciate your time joining us on the Walk Around Podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This is great. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
It really is, John. And, we are excited to hear your perspective. You have 1,400 dealer partners across in the automotive space that you work with. And I know that, obviously where automotive dealers spend their ad dollars, where they market, it's critically important. So your insight is going to be great for our listeners. So let me just kick it off with, what trends in dealership marketing and customer engagement are you following in 2026? What are the hot things that you're following for dealers that they should be thinking about?
Yeah. So the hot things, look, first it's dealers sit on a tremendous amount of first party data, and we've got to utilize that data in the DMS and the CRM to make more personalized one-to-one conversations with all of the customers that we serve in our hyper-local marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
That is a key component to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, if we're turning on Meta or Google or Amazon or any of these media partners, we want to make sure that for us, they check a 4A strategy. The first one is audience. What audience can we help a dealer connect with?
Okay, this is a 4A strategy.
This is our
This is
4A
A number one.
strategy.
All right, so we got to make sure listeners are getting this.
There we
right.
go.
A number
That's right.
one, think
A,
about audiences.
Audience, okay.
So if you're a dealer, think about the audiences in your DMS. Sold but never serviced. That'd
Okay.
be one audience.
Yes.
Serviced but never sold. That'd be another audience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
High APR percentage situations where we can sort of restructure their monthly payment,
Mhm.
right? There's so many different audience types sitting inside of the first party data. Then you got your conquest. On the service side, you've got active, inactive, and lost. You've got so many different segments that all require different conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So first is audience, and then on the media side, how can I connect to those audiences? Well, I think about attention. That'd be the second A. Where is their attention? In other words, do I have their email, but I have no other touch point to them? Well, then for us,
Mm-hmm.
our attention is through email. Do we have their social media accounts? Do we know what their Meta account is? Do we know what their Amazon account looks like? Do we know what a household graph? So for us, once we identify the household that they're in, we build a household graph inside of our technology that gives us every communication touch point, tablet, email, every phone that's in that household. And those are different ways we can communicate through our media partners. So attention would be the second one.
Okay.
Then it's automation. It's very tough to have one-to-one conversations if you don't have automation built into your processes.
Mm-hmm.
Last would be attribution,
Hmm.
right? So how do we report back, much like a wealth advisor would be, to what stock is performing better and move the media dollars in real time against where the biggest return on ad spend is? That would be the fourth A for us. So everything we're doing is fitting within that 4A strategy for us, whether it's product development, whether it's how we're communicating inside of an organization on a QBR for one of our big dealer groups. We say, here's what we did in the past. Let's spend about, 20 minutes of the hour there. The rest 40 minutes is here's how we're going to use that data to make the next quarter a lot more efficient. And so that's how we're thinking about everything.
I love that, John.
Yeah.
So let's dig in a little bit because that framework is a really good setup for what we wanted to talk to you about next. When you think about the audience, such an important part of the dealer's sales process is consistent messaging and clear messaging to their customers. And, in particular, making sure how they can message them correctly from the website and getting them into the showroom and that process. Like, what are you seeing there that is working? What are opportunities for dealers to be doing that better?
Yeah, so the response time is critically important, as you guys know, right? If we know that they're shopping and we know that they came to the dealer's website, we know that they either submit a lead or they call the store, they enter into the BDC environment, maybe the lead came through cars.com or within third parties, it's critically important that we're the fastest to getting in a conversation with them.
That's right, because when they've reached out at least to 3 to 5 other
That's correct.
opportunities,
That's
three
correct.
3 to 5 other businesses.
Right. And oftentimes it's the fastest that gets back, but then the most consistent, right? Because you could be the fastest, but you didn't reach them.
John, we were just talking about a friend of yours who is very fast and consistent on their text messages.
And who is this?
You. And this
Oh,
is
yeah. Just now.
just now.
Case in point.
Case in point. That's why you like him as a friend.
That's right.
Because he's so
That's right.
fast. He's so consistent.
And
It's
someone
unbelievable.
who is managing a great deal of affairs in our country, right?
Yeah. Senator Bernie Moreno, great
That's
friend
right.
of mine.
Yes.
You wouldn't know this, but he is incredibly responsive in his
that's right.
text messages,
He is.
right? So now going back to what your point on the dealer side is the response time and the way in which they process that lead is critical.
That's right. That's right. And so a lot of my relationship with Bernie started when he was a dealer and he had all the stores. And his response time was incredible. And what he was doing was proving through his own behavior that it's possible because he required all of his stores to operate the same way.
That's right.
So it's crazy that it's a year ago, but it was January 3rd. He was sworn into the Senate. I was there in D.C. with him. And he came into a small group of friends and family that were there. And he said, hey, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to operate, my seat in the Senate with my connectivity to everybody that I serve in Ohio, the same way I did with my dealerships. And we're going to have communication. If you reach out to my office, someone has to respond to you in 24 hours.
I love
When have you ever heard of that from a U.S. senator? Right? And so
Amazing.
they went from, I think, don't quote me on the number, but it was like, I think the previous senator maybe had 4 or 5 people that were in and around response. He upped that to 40. Well, how else are you going to respond in 24 hours?
Right.
Because it was that important to him that they heard the issues of his folks in Ohio that were reaching out to their senators saying, this is happening, that's happening, we need help. And he's like, I want to know, A, we've heard you, we're on it, we'll report back.
that was a fundamental belief of our founder.
That's right. Mr.
Jim Moran.
Moran.
He believed in the 24-hour rule. And it sounds like that's a common thread in very successful people, very successful businesses.
That's something similar that Rita Case has shared with us in talking to Rita. Rita has shared that she responds immediately. She gives her cell phone number out to her customers. It is critically important that you are there if your customers, your employees, your partners need you, that you respond. So if you think about a Senator Bernie Moreno, back in 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, Mr. Moran, and a Rita Case today, if they can respond,
What's the
our
common
sales
thread?
and BDC marketing teams could be responding to
Preach.
consumers to buy a car.
Amen. Keep going.
You're speaking to the converted. So let's talk a little bit more about that, John, because, with technology, AI, ChatGPT, there's certainly opportunities for dealers to try to improve that process, response time, customer communication. But I think we're hearing maybe some mixed reviews on how successful those tools really are for their dealers. What are you seeing? Do you see dealers using things like AI or technology really well in that customer communication? Or do you think we have some time to perfect that?
Well, first of all, it's early innings for AI, right? Turn on CNBC. Every category is trying to figure out how the AI revolution sort of will change their business model. I think it's going to change. And it's the adapt or die sort of philosophy to some degree, maybe without being that harsh. But we absolutely need to be learning of ways for AI to advance the customer engagement at a dealership. Period.
Yeah.
That's it.
And nobody has it perfect. So we got to look for progress over perfection in this category. So let's struggle, but let's figure out why that AI agent wasn't perfect. But were they quicker than the human? Because if speed is the most important in consumers, and by the way, we're all frustrated when we order something on Amazon, it doesn't come like that day. It's crazy. So we know the behavioral habits
Or within that
building,
3-hour window.
That 3-hour window, right? So we understand that, right? We understand that data is the new oil and has been for a long, long time. We understand AI really is just pattern recognition of a really good data set. Well, think about how powerful the data set is inside of the DMS and the CRM.
Yeah.
And we also know that those two tools have a lot of dirty data because, there's a lot of different folks that input the data into those systems. There's a lot of different leads that get provided from different partners, and they're not always clean. So we've got to make sure that cleaning is a daily thing, right? So that the partners we're working with from a data perspective have to constantly be cleaning the data. The prompts that we're writing in AI, whether we're using them on sales or service or any angle, are constantly being updated, right? Because what we're asking AI is we're having a conversation with technology and AI. And it's back and forth, right? So the prompts are very, very important. So I want to be thinking about AI as how are we advancing the communication set, but not looking for perfection just yet.
Yeah.
We're just not there yet. So how is a human interacting with AI? So I think the folks that are like fearful that AI could take over their job, that is less for the person that leans into AI. That is more for the person that does not lean into AI.
Those are those people that are unwilling to change.
That's right.
And any industry, but the automotive industry is constantly evolving,
That's right.
constantly changing. And if you want to stay in your 4 box, then you will be eliminated.
Sure. But you would be with any category,
That's true.
right? So whether it's AI, whether it was DR, or whether it was whatever the topic is of the day, if you weren't willing to learn more about how that can help you in your profession, well, then you're sort of on the other end of your career in that category may die, right? Someone else will come in and say, no, I'm going to learn all the new tools and I'm going to help advance the business using those tools.
Yeah.
John, let's pivot a little bit back to marketing. That's your bread and butter, your career, your expertise. When you look across, dealers that you speak to day in and day out, what's a common marketing misstep or mistake that you see dealers continuing to make because maybe it's just something that's a legacy initiative or something dealers have always done and you feel like we really should change this or do it differently? Are you seeing anything like that still happening?
I think generally speaking, look at an advertising budget at a dealership, right? They've got all these different categories of where their spend goes, right? So think Google, think Meta, think Amazon, think direct mail, email, my retention marketing, just third-party lists, right? It tends to be, unfortunately, that each one of those line items is pretty stagnant. In other words, I spend $10,000 with Google. I spend $5,000 with Meta. I spend $5,000 with Cars.com, right? Why is that not a variable that's changing based on the data that we're getting back? So we come in first and foremost and say, is your advertising and marketing expense thought about as an expense or an investment? Because if it is an expense line item, then you're just kind of stagnant and you're kind of always looking to cut it.
Yeah.
But if it's an investment and you have a conversation and a strategy with your marketing team that's very similar to your wealth management team, then you're always looking for the ROI and you're shifting dollars in real time based on where the ROI is.
So what I'm hearing you say is a mistake you see dealers making is just not looking enough at how they're using that budget, or they're looking at it in a way that is should be viewed more as how do you grow or evolve that budget as opposed to keeping it under control from an expense standpoint.
Right. So a dealer or GM watching this right now, right? Pull up your advertising, expense, or is it an investment sheet? Look at that lineup. Pick a lineup. Let's go with Google, right?
Yeah.
Did you spend the same amount this month that you spent last month and the month prior? If that number didn't change, you have a problem.
You're doing something
Most
wrong.
definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me we had the same exact buyers for your brand in December as we did in January?
No
You
way.
mean to tell me that the shopper propensity to buy was the exact same? You mean to tell me that the people that went into Google in your hyper-local place is exactly the same? There's no way.
And that's not only on the sales side, but on the fixed operations side, on the service side. You've got seasonality in there, variability. What's going on?
Struck a chord.
I'll give you an easy
You
one.
struck a chord, Heather.
I'm about to
For those
lose
that
it.
can't see this, John's about to jump out of his chair.
Vastly underinvested in fixed ops marketing.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Okay. 80% of our profits are made in fixed ops. Okay. 70% of our call volume that comes to the dealerships is service-based, even on a click from a sales ad.
Yeah.
Okay. We get that all the time. But we spend less than 5% of the marketing budget in fixed.
We were talking to a dealer and they made the extremely clear and relevant point is how many customers are those service drive associates touching versus the sales side.
Yeah.
But yet most of the effort, most of the advertising goes toward the sale, which is obviously important,
Right.
but why are you not shifting more to the area of the business that are interacting and creating loyalty with your customers more than any other?
Having double the amount of traffic. I mean, as we talked about, salespeople average 10 cars a month. They've been averaging 10 cars a month for quite a many decades. And you have service advisors who are touching 25 to 40 customers a day.
A day. Right.
And we're not investing our revenue from our marketing dollars in the area where we're seeing the most customers.
And they're still too disconnected, right? We know we have trade-ins that are coming in, those 40 opportunities per day. We know that we have so many opportunities to take someone that comes in off a recall. It would be a warranty pay situation, and also share with them the areas from a customer pay perspective that they've been neglecting for whatever reason. So maybe they came in off the recall, but they have other needs in that particular vehicle. I mean, there's so much opportunity on this side, and it comes to bringing those data sets together. So for us, we had an opportunity to take a look at Gulf States marketing, which we had heard from Gulf States Toyota. They were going to divest that property. This was during COVID at the end of 2020. I had on my big whiteboard, we need to build or buy a fixed ops retention tool. Because if we're going to be the marketing company that focuses on customer lifetime value, it's rooted in fixed ops. We know that if we sell a car to someone and we earn their first service appointment, we're 7 times more likely to get their second purchase. And then there's a multiplier effect now that Toyota dealer has 15 other dealerships across, 10 different franchises. Like that's a big opportunity from a customer lifetime value perspective. So we jumped all over that. I was in Houston the next day pleading to Dan Freakin and the family. I said, please sell this asset to me. And they're going, why would we do that? Who do we know? We don't know you. We've never worked with you before. I said, call my best clients. And they said, give John a shot. Lo and behold, we ended up acquiring that business. And then for the last 5 years, we've taken their fixed ops retention tool that started back in 1988 that was helped build Toyota Care, by the way. So think about loyalty from Toyota. So our entire platform is built off Toyota, TLE, and TLEE from the ground. Now we work with all of the nameplates. Just a huge opportunity. We brought that into Audience IQ so we could have one view of the customer, so that we could have a conversation that wasn't just variable and then a different one on fixed. It was one conversation. Because what does the customer want? One conversation.
You want a full 360 view of your customer.
That's right.
Wow. John, we could talk to you
We could.
all day.
We want to end on a segment that we think John is going to like. You mentioned early innings, so I get the sense you're a sports guy.
Oh, big time. I married a sports broadcaster.
That's right.
So, absolutely a sports fan. Yeah.
Okay, so we call this Bet It or Forget It. We're going to give you 3 takes about the industry, and you tell us I'm all in or I'm out. I'm betting it or I'm forgetting it. Okay?
Yeah.
First one, AI chat or automation will completely replace BDC sales roles by 2030. Bet it or forget it.
I struggle with completely.
Okay.
I want to say bet it.
Fair.
I want to say bet it. I struggle with the word completely. If you say the majority, then absolutely bet it.
Okay. Love it.
Yeah. Still need that human connection.
You do, and there'll be maybe a leader of the AI agents that's human, right? And so that'll be that's going to be very necessary. But full BDC centers have not proven that they can do what AI can do in seconds.
Okay, second one. I think I know where you're going with this. We've already sort of talked about it, but first-party data will become a dealer's most valuable asset more so than their inventory. Bet it or forget it.
I would change it again because it already is their most
already
valuable
is.
asset. It's
Is.
not going to become, it already is their most valuable asset, and it will just stay in that lead position because data is the new oil. So the oil that they're sitting on in that first-party data is incredibly valuable, and any threat or risk to the dealer body
Mm-hmm.
is rooted in the first-party data that they sit on.
Local brand awareness matters more than vehicle inventory when it comes to generating leads.
Those are so important.
Both.
They're so important.
We need an answer, John.
I know. Someone play the Jeopardy music. Inventory is really important.
You're going to forget
I'm
it.
going to forget it.
Okay.
Because inventory is so important. And the more we get in an AI world, and the more we're in a world where we're across all of these different media platforms, your inventory's got to show up in front of the consumer.
Right.
And consumers will drive, they will go further to get the vehicle they want. We hear time and time again, consumers have gone 6 hours away
That's
to
right.
get that Dodge Ram pickup truck that they've
That's right.
been wanting. And I think coming out of COVID and when there was the supply chain
Yep.
and the inventory challenges, people got used to, I may not need to go if I
Yeah.
want this particular car.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I struggle with this question because
Yeah.
I could argue both sides of the fence on that one.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
really good question
Thank
because
you, John.
they'll also not consider inventory as the number one reason if the brand is so strong. In other words, if they know Rita, you just mentioned Rita.
That's right.
Right? Grew up in South Florida.
Yeah.
So I know that name brand incredibly well.
Yeah.
And I may opt to, if I live in Davie, Florida, I may go over to her Honda complex with all her different options and just pick because I want to do
Because you
business
know
with
the
Rita
brand.
Case
Sure.
and not necessarily even search for the inventory because it's less as important because her brand is so strong.
Or ask Rita, that black Honda CRV I want is up in Tampa. Can you get it here for me?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That's right.
Let me add one more. Was that your last question?
That was.
I'm betting a lot right now and this you had an earlier question on the power of TikTok.
Tell us more.
So TikTok invited me to be on the NADA live stage to kick off NADA here. We've done some testing with them. In our tests, they weren't ready for scale. They weren't ready for this inventory piece, right? So we knew that they had a huge audience. We know that a lot of attention is being spent on TikTok. So they already had my attention here with my 4As. They didn't have the automation piece. We challenged them, and for the last 18 months, they've built out a pretty robust automation piece that can tie inventory in to their ad units in real time, much like you can do in Meta. Now, the difference with Meta and TikTok is that TikTok is built around the audience being served to the advertiser instead of the advertiser serving to the audience. That is a significantly key differentiator. So when you're thinking about TikTok, first, a lot of people had a lot of pause on the word TikTok from an advertising perspective for political reasons.
Sure.
And where the data was housed. Luckily, we can put that to bed now that it's a U.S.-owned property.
Right.
Hopefully we can. I certainly can. Because the audience is so real and the attention is so dynamic. It's addictive.
Yes.
Okay? I am addicted to TikTok.
And I would say
First,
even,
I was trying to educate myself, and then I went, I'm spending hours. What used to be, a Tony Robbins book before bed is now TikTok. Right?
And I would say even more hyper personalized.
Well, because the
Beyond
algorithm's
Meta.
serving you what you already like, right? So
Right.
for me, I get a ton of comedians, I get motivational speakers, I get food recipes, because I like to cook for the family. Like I get plays because I'm a 10U basketball coach, so I'm looking at like different play sets, right? So this is what I've searched for. So they serve me more and more of that content, right? And then me and my dad
Keeping
are
you on the platform.
I'll tell you what, me and my dad are already super tight,
Yeah.
but it's brought us even tighter together. Because if you go to our chat thread, it's TikToks back and forth. And then if we don't answer, he's like, "Did you watch what I sent you?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "You got to watch that. We got to talk about it."
I do this. I have an 18-year-old, and if he doesn't watch what I send him, I get so annoyed.
Yeah. So their ad unit's super. And by the way, it's still very much an untapped opportunity for dealers
is.
because there's been all this hesitation for all
Yeah.
these other reasons. And now that they've got the automation piece, which they also have the attribution piece, right? In one of our studies, Honda store in Nashville, they spent $1,000. Not a lot of money. Okay, $1,000 investment on the platform for 1,300 clicks to the site that we view as highly engaged. And what we view as highly engaged is, did you spend more than a minute on the site? You say if you spend more than a minute on the site in today's environment, you're pretty engaged.
Yeah.
Right? You're definitely not fraud. You're not bot traffic, and you're searching around. Right? $1,000 for 1,300 people in a hyper-local marketplace, that seems like a good ROI. Right? And it was a fraction of what you could spend in some of the other media outlets. So when we think about new opportunities, when we think about new audience sets, it doesn't matter to me, right? I'm an investment trader. I'm day trading attention, right? I don't get paid any more if you put the money in TikTok or Meta or Google. It makes no difference. What makes difference to us is that the results are there.
Yeah.
And so when we see results, it's our duty to bring that up. And there's a huge opportunity right now.
All right, dealers,
definitely.
marketing pros,
And I
you've
heard
heard it here.
that $1,000 was a marketing investment.
It was an
not
investment,
an expense.
not an expense.
And
Remember that,
Remember
dealers.
that.
Not an marketing is not an expense; it's an investment.
that's right.
I love that.
Thank
John
you, John.
Fitzpatrick.
This was fantastic.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so
We
much.
really appreciate you joining us today on The Walk Around, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow us. We look forward to seeing you next time on The Walk Around.